Hi there, it's Carol with Carol B Crafts. Today we'll be doing project number 2 in my You're Inspiring Flying Home online class. And this is an adorable little Easter card. It says kind thoughts for you and happy Easter on the inside. The stamp sets we'll be using are You're Inspiring and Flying Home. We'll be using the two little birds for the inside sentiment from the Flying Home. And we'll be using the Happy Easter for the inside sentiment and Kind Thoughts for You on the outside sentiment. And then we'll be using these little daffodils. I was going to call these gladiolas. Daffodils for to do this strip right here. Now, if you haven't gotten a kit, the kit includes 6 cards, and I'm adding a bonus project as well. And you can get the kit free with a $60 retail purchase. That's before shipping and tax, using the host code on my website, www.carolbcrafts.com. Now, the kits come like this. Everything's cut and pre-scored for you. And this is the one we'll need for today's project. Now, if you don't have a kit, I'll be giving the dimensions, and I'll also put the supplies and dimensions on my website so that you can make this card as well. Or if you have the kit and you'd like to make more, then you'll know how to do it. Okay, so we won't need an envelope right now, so we'll set that aside. You have 2 pieces of, and this was inside the envelope, 2 1-yard pieces of the linen thread, one for the bow and one for this to go wrap around the card. You'll have your piece of thick whisper white for your card base. You have a piece of Daffodil Delight, which is 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. Then you'll have a piece of Old Olive, which is 5 1/4 by 4, and it is run through the new Basket Weave Dynamic Textured Impressions folder, and it's just adorable little basket weave that I've fallen in love with. Now, this is available to you. It's not a catalog product. Right now it's only available through the Celebration program, which if you purchase $100 before March 31st, 2018, you can choose this as your Celebration item. And it comes as a bundle. You get this adorable little stamp, clear mount stamp, and then the folder. Now, the folder, the dynamic folder, basket weave, is going to be carried over into the annual catalog. But I don't think the stamp set will be, but the dynamic folder obviously will be, because it says so in the Celebration catalog. So I've embossed this with the basket weave folder, and it's just beautiful. So that's going to go on top of our daffodil. And then we have another piece of Daffodil Delight, which is 5 1/4 by 2 3/8. It's going to go on top of that. And then I give you 2 pieces of Whisper White. This is this is thick Whisper White, because we are going to be doing our watercoloring with it, so I have to use the thick Whisper White, and that is, thought I'd put it on the back. It's 5 1/2 by 2 1/8. 5 1/2 by 2 1/8, and it's going to go on top of that. I'll give you 2 in case you need it. And then the inside sentiment, Happy Easter, I have a piece of Daffodil Delight, which is 4 1/2 by 3 1/4, and then 2 pieces of the regular Whisper White, which is 4 1/4 by 3 1/2, and I give you 2 of those to stamp as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. Get your Whisper White for your inside sentiment and your thick Whisper White for your front sentiment with the daffodils, and we'll get busy stamping. Okay, so I have the daffodil stamp, and this is actually the stamp twice, once and then twice. And I'm using my grid paper, and I'm going to try to remember to put the number for the grid paper on the screen, because I think it's a really good tool to have when you're stamping. Helps me out a lot. I'm going to put just a little bit of snail on the back of this to hold it in place while I'm working on it, and I'm going to put it along one of these lines here at the bottom, because I want to be able to measure 1/2 inch from the bottom, and these lines will help me to do that. So I've got my stamp on an E block, and you do need an E block with that stamp set you're inspiring, because it won't fit on a D block. And I'm using Memento ink, Tuxedo Black. And when you use this ink, I found you have to be careful because of the way the lid goes on. Sometimes the lid can touch the ink, and then when you touch the lid, you get ink on your fingers, which that's not so terrible, but then you get ink on your project, which you might be able to tell there's a little bit of ink right there. So just be very careful. Keep a wipe handy to wipe your hands when you touch your ink pad. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my ink pad, wipe my hands, and I have this on the center. I have it centered. Let me see. I hope I do. I meant to. It doesn't look like it. Hold on. So this is 5 1/4. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's centered there. And why it's important to have it centered is it's going to help me to know where to place 1 and then 2. So I'm going to get my Stamp-A-Majig. I might have forgot to tell you, you'll need that since we're working with the clear mount stamps and not photopolymer. We're going to need to be able to use our Stamp-A-Majig. Now, if you want to just rub this, it'll help you get a better, I don't know what it is about the Memento ink pad, but I find if I do a little bit of rubbing and then tapping, that I get a much better image. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that again. Okay, I've got a little bit of a double image, but I don't think that will matter. Okay, so I'm going to put this here, and I want the bottom of my daffodils to be 1/2 inch from the bottom of the paper, and then of course I want it straight across. So that looks about right. And I will be trimming some off the edge. I'll be trimming 1/4 inch off of this and then so I don't want to get too close to the edge. So that looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp that. Actually, that's a little high. Let me do that again. Don't want to go over my half mark. That looks kind of high. We'll bring that down a little bit. Right there. Ink up my stamp straight down. Give it a little help there. Straight up. Okay, so now I want this flower to be almost, this leaf almost touching the other flower next to it, so it looks like a continuous grouping. And I want to bring this one up off about 1/2 inch from the bottom. Okay, that looks about right. So I'll go ahead and stamp that one. I want to make sure I leave enough in that bottom left corner for the kind thoughts for you. Go straight down. Give it some help. and straight up. Okay, now I'm going to do the kind thoughts for you. So let me clear off my Stamp-A-Ma-Jig sheet. Now I'm going to get my kind thoughts for you stamp. I have it on a D block, and I've used it once. I'm going to go ahead and twist it a little bit just to make sure. And straight down and up. I want to put this in the bottom right corner, about about 3/8 of an inch from this edge. And I want to make sure I leave room for my burlap ribbon, or the linen thread, but I don't want my G's to go past the paper either. So I think I'm going to bring it over just a little bit more. That looks good. Ink up my stamp, straight down and up. Okay, I have kind thoughts for you. Now we're going to also stamp the inside. Clean off my pad. Now I want to leave this in place because it's stuck down and I want to color it, and I want it stuck down while I color it. So I'm not going to need this, but if you want to go ahead and do it, go ahead and stamp this one too in case you have an extra, in case you need an extra later on. Now we want the other piece of the Whisper White, which is 4 1/4 by 3 1/2. This is going to be the inside sentiment. Happy Easter in the middle. So we'll go ahead and stamp, get our Happy Easter stamp, and I have that on a D block. Ink it up, put it on our Stamp-A-Ma-Jig sheet. Now I'm going to put this on my paper too with a little bit of snail. Put it down here. And I'm not sure if you can see it. Hopefully you can. I think you can. It's down here at the bottom, but you can still see it. So my Happy Easter is going to go about right here. And I think I'll use this long piece of, just to make sure, I'm going to measure it even with both of these on the sides, and then that'll help me know. So that's about 1 1/4 inches from the top, and that helps me line up my Happy Easter. Hold it in place, and then put my Stamp-A-Ma-Jig there. Kind of tricky. You have to kind of be like a juggler here. Straight down and up. Clean off my stamp. Now I'm ready for my birds, and I have them on a D block. So I'm going to do this little bird with has the feet first on this side of the Easter. So I'll get my sheet back, stamp my little bird on my sheet. This Stamp-A-Ma-Jig is just great for placing things on your paper. I just don't know how I could do it without it. I probably couldn't do it without it. So here's my little bird here. And I am loving this Memento ink because it doesn't smear. I found that the archival, it kind of sometimes will smear if it hasn't dried all the way. But so I'm thinking I might stay with this Memento ink here for a while. Okay, now I'm going to do the other bird. Get my, I'm not going to clean it off, I'm just going to do this. Double duty. Okay, and now this little bird is going to go about right here, just wherever you think it looks good, so it looks even and like it belongs. And there, I don't know. Just go ahead and put that bird on there. Okay, I don't want to think too much. Okay, straight down and up. Alright, we have our birds. I'll clean off my stamps. So we're done with our stamping and our ink, so we'll go ahead and put that away. And we're ready to do some coloring. Now for the coloring, you're going to need your watercolor pencils, Old Olive, Calypso Coral, Daffodil Delight, and Early Espresso. And then you're also going to need your blender pen. We're not going to work with water this time. So I think I'll go ahead and move this out of the way here for now. And gently pull it up so it doesn't rip the paper. And I'll put that aside for now. Now this, I'd like to do the leaves first. And with this, since these are tiny, tiny little images, it's good to have a pretty sharp, not real sharp, you don't want to like a pencil mark, but you want it sharp enough that you can come in and you can color this stem. And I found it's actually better to make long marks like that if you can on the stems. So what we're going to do is we put down some color. We're going to come back with our blender pen and we're going to blend that together, blend that color together to make it more of a watercolor look. Now if you want a watercolor look, this is where you would stop, but while it's still wet, if you want a bolder look like I have here, come back in with your pencil, and while it's wet it will help to take that color off the pencil and you'll have a nice true darker color. Okay, so we're going to do that all along the all of the stems and leaves. And I don't forget that one. So basically you put down the color and you come back in with your blender pen, and if you want to have that extra color, you just come back in one more time and then move to the next one. So I'm going to do all of these and I will come back with you to do the daffodils later. Okay, so I was filming and my camera wasn't on record, so I will do another one of these flowers for you so that you can kind of see where we're going with this. Okay, so we've got all our leaves done. Now we're going to do our daffodils, and I'll do this one over here and hopefully you can see it. I'm going to color it yellow. I'm going to put one coat of yellow down, and you do want to make sure that your pencil is relatively pointy, sharp, because you don't want to go outside the lines unless you have to. So once you get that first coat of color down, very familiar, you're going to come in with this. Now you clean off your green if you still have some green on there, and you're going to blend in this color here. And while it's still wet, you want to come back in, unless you want the watercolor look, come back in with the yellow and blend in some a deeper yellow color of the Daffodil Delight. So you'll do that with all of the flowers, and then you're going to come back with the Calypso Coral, and wherever you see this little the little shading marks, you're going to put some Calypso Coral. And then you're going to come in with the dark brown, the early espresso, and just kind of put some at the base of the flower and the petals and the bud, and then a little bit here at the base of there. And then you'll come back in with your blender pen and brush out away from the dark. You're blending the dark in with the light. Okay, and then you're going to do that for all of your daffodils. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll come back together. Okay, so once you've got your flowers done, bring in your birds, and we're going to do yellow for the birds. And do our usual. And then if you want the darker, come back in with your pencil. We'll do the other bird. Blender pen. Pencil again. Now for the beak, I'm just going to do the early espresso, and I'm not even going to hit it with the blender pen. I'm just going to leave it like that. So we are done with our watercoloring. Okay, so we're going to bring in the rest of our items from our kit. Now this needs to be, pull it off of the paper gently. This needs to, it's 5.5 now, I believe. Yeah, 5.5, and it needs to be 5 1/4. Let me make sure. Yeah, it needs to be 5 1/4. So we're going to have to trim some off the sides. So we'll bring in our trimmer, and let me make sure this is in focus here. Alright, so we know we want it to be 5 1/4, and right now it is 5 1/2, so we need to take 1/4 of an inch off. But we don't want to take 1/4 of an inch off of one side, because then it'll be lopsided. So we want to kind of gauge. We need to take maybe 1/8 off of this one and 1/8 off of that one. I'm going to turn it upside down. And let's see, if I do 5 1/8, that's going to be a bit too much on that side. Let's see. We don't 5 3/8. That's what we want. 5 3/8, because it's 5 1/2. We want to take 1/4 off. So we'll take 5 3/8 off of this side, 1/8 an inch. Turn it around and take 1/8 an inch. So it would be 5 1/4 this time. Measure 5 1/4. And I did that so that you could have some extra wiggle room when you did your stamping. So now we have our 5 1/4. It had been 5 1/2. We made it 5 1/4 by taking basically 1/8 of an inch off of each edge. Now it's ready to go on our piece of Daffodil Delight, which is 5 1/4 by 2 3/8. And I've already put some sticky on the back of it, some snail. So it's going to match on the edges with 1/8 of an inch at the top and the bottom. And that looks pretty good. Okay, so now we're ready to put it on our Old Olive basket weave panel. And it's going to go 3/4 of an inch from the bottom. So the edge of the daffodil is going to be 3/4 of an inch from the bottom of this Old Olive. So I think I'm going to go ahead and take a pencil and mark that 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to mark just above the line so that I can hide my mark when I put my paper on, my panel on. So So I've got my 2 3/4 of an inch marks. Put my snail on my panel. Now this is going to go on something that's embossed. So I'm going to put a little more adhesive on it than I would normally use. Okay, so I'm going to cover up that mark, make the edge even, find my other mark over here and make it even with that mark, but where you can't see it. I want to hide it. Now this is sticking over here on the edge, so I'm going to flip it over and trim it with some scissors. I've got my little snips here, and follow the old olive. You might have to do this, you might not. If you don't, that's fine. Okay, so now we have this. We're ready to put our twine on, and we want our, what's actually linen thread is what they call it. We want it to go along the bottom of the daffodils, like so. And we want it to wrap around 3 times. And we're going to use one of the pieces of the linen thread. They're both the same size, so you don't have to worry about getting which one you get. Now, we know that the thread is going to go here, so we want to put some snail on the back, even with that mark, but above it, kind of where we know that we'll have, the thread will have something to go into. We want to do that on both sides, about 1 inch away from the edge. And we'll start on the left side, and we'll put this in, make it even with our the bottom of our daffodils. Wrap it around. That's 2, and 1 more, that's 3. And then we'll just push it into some of that sticky and trim it. And I'm trim this side too. Don't have to, but I'm going to anyway. Now we're ready to put it on our card base. So we'll go ahead and get our card base. Well, actually we're not, but we'll go ahead and get our card base and fold it over. We have the valley facing us. We fold it away and then we crease it. So yeah, before we put it on the card base, we have to put our piece of Daffodil Delight, 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. That's right. So we'll go ahead and put this on our Daffodil Delight, and we'll use our snail for that. And again, because it is embossed, I'm going to go crazy with this and make sure that it stays on the front. Now I'm using my waxy strip. It's left over from the mini glue dots. I use that when I do a bigger panel like this, in case I have to take it apart. Let's make sure it sticks in there in case I have to take it apart. Now this has a 1/16 of an inch all around, and let's see if we can get this right the first time. That looks good. Okay. Now this is going to go on the card front just like this. More snail. And my waxy strip. Again, 1/16 of an inch. I think I'll use the other side. Push it down really good so it sticks. Now we're ready to do the inside. We'll go ahead and pull in our Happy Easter. It's going to go on our Daffodil Delight, 4 1/2 by 3 1/4. This is just a cute little Easter card here. I had fun coming up with this design. I wanted to use the basket weave folder, and yeah, I think it goes good with this card. Okay, the only thing we have left to do is our bow. Now this is not a double bow, it's a quadruple bow. So you'll get your piece of 1 yard of linen thread, and you want to leave about 5 inches, and you're going to pinch that in your hand. And then these 2 fingers are going to be your guide. So you've got that pinched in your hand. Spread your fingers out about about an inch, half an inch, about a half an inch there, and you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you're going to bring it around. Now this piece that you're holding on to, what you bring around is going to go on this side of it and through your fingers. This can be a little tricky. And then you're going to bring this up and through the loop that you just made. Make sure it goes between your fingers. This is not as hard as it looks. It's just that this twine is okay, so we have it. We're going to bring it behind. The twine has a mind of its own. Okay, so bring it behind through here. Okay, so do you see what I've done? And then you're going to pull it straight towards you. Keep the knot in the middle of your fingers and just pull it tight as you can. And then you're going to get it off of your fingers gently. And it does come off. It might take a little bit, but it does come off. And if it's bigger on one side than the other, you can adjust it. You can move the little knot around if you need to. You can move it, but that looks about even. And then you can fluff up the edges like this, the bow part. You can fluff that up so it doesn't look so. And then you're going to need a glue dot, which is included in your adhesive package, but I'm just going to use a glue dot off of my glue dot roll. Put it on the glue dot like that, and then you're going to pinch it off and put it about 1.5 inches from the edge, wherever you like it. And you're going to put it on top of your twine that you just put around the card. And that should stay in place, and then you're just going to trim off the ends of your thread, and now you have your card. So that is project number 2 in our Your Inspiring and Flying Home, yes, online card class. So if you would like the details on how you can get the card class kit free, check out my website, www.carolbcrafts.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you for project number 3. Bye now.